One of the biggest stories of early 2025 has to be Florida State's apparent turnaround. A year ago, the Seminoles were a 2-10 team with an 86th ranked defense and one of the worst offenses in the country. That made it quite a statement then when they came out in week 1 and comfortably handled then number 8 Alabama, scoring 31 points for themselves while holding Kalen DeBoer's offense to just 17. The Seminoles went up by 2 scores late in the first half and hardly looked back, with the Tide only being within 1 score for about 4 minutes after that point. What might be most impressive, though, is how they did it. For a big-time matchup like this, conventional wisdom says that you need a balanced offense, and to threaten Alabama's top 25 defense both on land and through the air. New Seminole offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn didn't care about all that, though, abandoned the pass almost entirely with a few notable exceptions, and leaned heavily into the run game that his offense is really based on. In this game, Florida State ran the ball 46 times against just 14 passes and picked up 236 yards and 4 touchdowns at 5.1 yards per carry. This run-pass ratio isn't strange for Malzahn, who's always been a big spread-to-run guy, but what is at least a little surprising is that in this game he seemed to largely avoid the spread part, playing well over half of his snaps with 2 or more tight ends on the field. His game plan didn't start out that way, but by the end of the first half, he'd clearly seen something that he liked, and he spent the second half running multiple tight end sets on 22 out of 31 plays. In fact, as the game wore on, his typical 3 receiver sets mostly appeared on 2nd and 3rd and long, with heavier sets dominating almost all neutral down situations. With that much of a skew, you might think that Alabama would lock on to what the Seminoles were trying to do and come up with an answer to stop it. That never happens consistently, though, and a big part of understanding this game is figuring out why. The first thing to know about Malzahn's offense, whether he's playing with 2 tight ends or 3 wide receivers, is that he's going to use motion to stretch defenses horizontally, forcing them to defend several points of attack simultaneously across a large stretch of the field. On this play, for example, we're getting motion across the formation by this wide receiver up at the top of the screen, and we're seeing it used to stress the perimeter to the opposite side. This play won't be successful, but it shows one point of attack that Alabama's forced to respect. As that player comes across the formation in motion, the quarterback's going to take the snap from under center, and then as he starts to drop, he's going to slip it to that motion man with his left hand, setting up a jet sweep to the right side edge. Part of the strategy for setting up this wide play, though, is the ability to threaten other plays in different directions, and here we can see that while that wide receiver is threatening the edge to the offense's right, the quarterback's continuing his drop and executing a fake handoff to the running back behind him as that guy acts like he's attacking back in the opposite direction. If you're the defense trying to take away this play in real time, then the actual handoff on the jet sweep to the right and the fake handoff for the running back to the left force you to stay disciplined and gap sound across a wide stretch of the field, and this is the kind of horizontal pressure that Malzahn's offense is so good at creating. To make these threats truly effective, of course, Malzahn has to actually have plays where the wide receiver goes in motion and the quarterback fakes it to him while actually handing off to the running back, and that's what we're going to see right here. If you stop the play at this point, it's hard to know if the wide receiver is going to take the handoff or if the quarterback's going to pull the ball and give it to the running back as he actually does on this play. A second benefit of this motion, then, is that you can use it to make 2 different plays look the same. When the wide receiver goes in motion, sometimes it's a jet sweep attacking out wide to the perimeter, and sometimes it's a zone run between the tackles. Again, it's all about stretching the defense horizontally by threatening multiple points of attack. This basic strategy is kind of a throwback to an older era of football, which was dominated by something called series football. In a modern, multiple pro-style offense, the same play will often be dressed up in a bunch of different ways. You might run a play out of different personnel groupings with different formations and different motions. Fundamentally, it's the same play, but the idea is to run it throughout the game while presenting it in different ways so that you can disguise when it's coming. Series football is kind of the opposite of this. In series football, you have a bunch of different plays, but they all look the same. So you'll come out in the same formation, run the same motion, and so on, but the ball will go to different players and hit different points of attack. One of the heights of series football within the history of the game came during the reign of the single-wing offenses in the 1930s and 40s, and if you want to see a video on that, I did a study of Fritz Kreisler's 1947 Michigan offense over at patreon.com/tcpfootball, where I go into what football looked like right at the dawn of the pro-style era, so you can learn more about that topic there if you're interested. While this kind of offensive attack is a throwback to an earlier time, Malzahn also exploits two popular modern developments from the last 25 or 30 years, the zone read and the run-pass option. If series football can use the same formation and backfield action to run a bunch of different plays, then an RPO gives you a bunch of options all wrapped up into one play. We've already seen, for example, that out of a formation like this, Florida State can use motion to threaten a jet sweep to the perimeter, and that they can also hand it off to the running back for a zone run. For a third option, they can execute that run as a zone read. On this kind of play, the offensive line is going to leave the backside edge player unblocked, while the quarterback reads him with the option to either hand it off to the running back for a run to the right, or to keep it himself for a run to the left, creating a third point of attack that can be threatened with this kind of motion. Both options are live for the quarterback, but in this case, they're activated by his read of the defense's reaction, rather than being called in from the sideline by the offensive coordinator. For one final point of attack on plays like this, these plays are also often run as run-pass options, and to see the benefit from Malzahn's horizontally based run game, we need to spend a second looking at the defense, and at one of the ways that Alabama tried to stop Malzahn's run game. On the last play, we saw a zone read, where the offensive line left the backside edge player unblocked and asked the quarterback to read him. The idea here is that if that unblocked defender dives down inside to chase the running back, then the quarterback will keep the ball and take it around the edge. One of the ways that Alabama could attack this then was to have that edge player crash down for the running back, taking away the run play and encouraging the quarterback to keep the ball. Then they like to run this with a coverage called Cover 3 Cloud. In this coverage, the cornerback to this side of the field is going to jump down inside to play as a short underneath defender in coverage, while the safeties and opposite cornerback roll to play a 3-deep zone behind him. Against this coverage, when Malzahn's quarterback pulls the ball and tries to keep it around the edge, then that cornerback's sitting right there, unblocked and ready to make the tackle. To add in one more horizontal point of attack then, Malzahn would run these plays as run-pass options with the wide receiver to the side of the quarterback running a curl. Against Alabama's 3 cloud coverage, here's what this is going to do. After the snap, the offensive line is going to leave this edge player unblocked, and he's going to dive down inside to chase the running back because he knows that he's got that cloud cornerback playing on the outside to take away the quarterback keeper. The quarterback sees that unblocked player crashing for the running back, and that tells him to pull the ball and keep it for himself around the backside edge. But when he sees that cloud cornerback attacking the line of scrimmage to tackle him, he can pull the ball and throw it to that wide receiver on the curl just as he's breaking off his route underneath of the safety that's rolling deep to play over the top of him down the sideline. When we pause the play right here, we can see the horizontal space that's being threatened, with the motion receiver all the way up at the top of the screen, the running back attacking the line of scrimmage to that same side, the quarterback attacking around the backside edge, and the wide receiver running the curl route near the sideline. All of it has to be defended all of the time, and the quarterback doesn't even have to drop back to throw a pass. In the intro to this video, I talked about how, as the game wore on, Florida State settled more and more into a 2 tight end run game. If you want to know why that happened and what Alabama did to respond to motion against Florida State's spread sets, I've got a video on that on my Patreon page as well, so check out patreon.com/tcpfootball if you're interested. Once the Seminoles got into these 2 tight end sets, though, one of the things that they loved to do was to use their tight ends as extra blockers on the edge to put extreme pressure on Alabama's defensive fronts. We'll see an example of how they could do that on the next play, but before doing that, let's come back to this RPO for a quick second and imagine that this is going to be a jet sweep to that wide receiver that's going in motion toward the top of the screen. If this were the play that Florida State was running, then there is one player, the cornerback to the top of the screen here, who'd be in a good position to come up and set the edge, turning this play back inside to Alabama's front defenders in pursuit. Switching over to this next play then, we're going to see Florida State getting rid of that cornerback by using an empty backfield, taking their running back and splitting him out wide. When the running back lines up wide like this, then the cornerback has to widen with him to cover him in the passing game, and this eliminates that defender from the edge in the run game. This means that when the slot receiver on the other side of the formation goes in motion, the 2 defenders left in position to defend the edge will be Alabama's play side outside linebacker and their play side inside linebacker, the 2 guys who can potentially get in position to cut off any outside run to this side. This is where Florida State's two tight ends come in. After the snap, they're going to widen, creating separation in space between themselves and the rest of the defensive front, who are getting pulled to the offense's left by a quarterback run threat that we'll talk about in a minute. With those tight ends isolated on those two linebackers like this, they're just going to block them while the ball carrier cuts based off of their blocks, taking it around the edge here, although the on-the-ball tight end gets called for holding on his outside linebacker, bringing this play back. If you're Alabama then, why don't you just put more defenders over those two tight ends? How's Florida State able to ensure that they're getting a good blocking matchup for their tight ends against those linebackers? This brings us to the quarterback run element that I just alluded to. On this play, the quarterback won't just hand it off blindly no matter what the defense is doing. He has two options on this play, and he's looking at someone on the defense to tell him what to do. It's hard to tell exactly who he's reading on some of these plays, but his reactions make the most sense if he's keying the rotation of Alabama's safeties. On this play, for example, we're not going to see any safety playing to the side of those tight ends until very late in the down. It doesn't look like there's anybody rotating down to add in as a third defender to this side. And so the quarterback knows that he has a 2-on-2 matchup between his tight ends and those linebackers, and this tells him that he can hand the ball off for the sweep. On this play, in contrast, we'll see a different reaction. This time, when the wide receiver goes in motion, the safeties are going to roll hard toward him. So keep an eye on this safety right here, who's lined up to the side where the motion is going. As the wide receiver crosses the formation, that safety comes down hard. When he does this, the quarterback knows that they're going to have at least three defenders, the cornerback, outside linebacker, and safety, playing over just two tight ends. When the quarterback sees this safety rotation then, it tells him to keep the ball for himself, where the offensive line is executing a quarterback counterplay back in the opposite direction. So why is this a good play? When we look to the right, to the side of this quarterback run play, we see that before the snap, Alabama has a safety playing over the slot receiver that's about to go in motion. When Alabama's safeties roll with the motion though, that guy drops back to replace his partner in the deep middle of the field, opening up that side of the formation for the quarterback counterplay to the right. This play isn't blocked perfectly, but with that safety gone, the Seminoles are asking their left guard to pull across the formation to kick out the outside linebacker. They're asking their left tackle to pull across the formation to block the inside linebacker. And then the right guard is going to block the defensive end playing over him, giving him a hat for a hat on all of Alabama's defenders to this side. Okay, so that's what it looks like when Alabama rolls their safeties with motion, but what happens if they do something different? We're seeing a great example of that here. Remember that on the last play, Alabama was lining up with a safety down, playing over Florida State's slot receiver before he goes in motion. On this play, they're instead rolling their safety down to the side of the two tight ends before the motion, and then they're bumping their linebackers over to the side of the slot receiver instead. So what does this do for that jet sweep counter read play? Well, first, it pre-aligns a safety to the two tight end side. As we saw before, this gives the defense three perimeter defenders against just two tight ends, taking away a potential jet sweep to the perimeter. Then, they're shifting their linebackers over to the side where the quarterback counterplay would be going, and this gives them good numbers against this play, letting them take away both options. In this case, though, if Alabama wants to shift their linebackers away from the tight ends and toward the quarterback counterplay, then Florida State's just going to run back toward the tight ends, away from that linebacker shift, using an extra blocker and running a quarterback power play to the right. For this play, it really looks like the quarterback is reading the outside linebacker to the side of the motion, or the guy that's lined up over the two tight ends. If that guy squeezes down inside, then the tight ends will be able to release up to the cornerback and down safety, blocking them 2-on-2 on the perimeter for the jet sweep. On this play, though, that guy's going to go outside and absorb the block of one of the tight ends. When he widens, the quarterback's going to keep the ball for himself and cut up to the inside of that defender. And then they're going to run a quarterback power play, blocking the inside linebacker and down safety to this side by pulling the left guard and having him lead through the hole for one of them, while the running back leads through the hole for the other. Again, the blocking's not perfect, but we can see how it's supposed to work. We'll see this turning into a bigger play on this snap. Again, before the snap, we see that the outside linebacker to the side of the slot receiver is walked out toward him, while the inside linebacker is still lined up relatively wide outside of his defensive end. After the snap, as the two tight ends to the side of the motion widen to create that separation between themselves and the rest of the defensive front, we see the outside linebacker to this side again turning and running wide with them, telling the quarterback to keep the ball and cut up inside of that defender. Once again, the running back releases up to block the strong safety as he rolls down. The right guard pulls to block the inside linebacker to this side. And the backside inside linebacker isn't close enough to get to this play as the quarterback bounces it out to the perimeter. On the whole then, these plays, when sequenced with the zone read RPO that we studied earlier in this video, gave Florida State a good amount of variety and a number of points of attack, all out of these two tight end sets with motion going toward the tight ends. It was that variety that let them continue to move the ball, even while running an offense that looked, in general terms, pretty similar from play to play. In the end, though, to score points, they needed to generate some bigger plays, and we'll see two of them here to close out this video. This one came on their last scoring drive and gave them a 26-yard gain that got them well into Alabama territory. They would score their fourth touchdown 2 plays later. The camera angle comes in a little bit late here, but this formation has many of the same features that we've been looking at. To the top of the screen, we have two receiving threats split out wide, with the guy in the slot going in motion across the formation. On the side that he's motioning toward, we see a tight end, and not a true second tight end here like on the other plays, but a wide receiver lined up relatively tight to the offensive line. On defense, we see that Alabama has spun a safety down to the tight end side of the formation, and that they've walked a linebacker out to play over where the slot receiver started. This is similar to the situation that we just studied, where Alabama ran quarterback power to the tight end side away from Alabama's shifted linebackers. On this play, quarterback power is exactly what it's meant to look like. By the time the camera angle comes in, we can see the left guard stepping out of the line, pulling to the right toward the tight end just as he would on a quarterback power play. This is where it gets interesting though. A second ago, I mentioned that to the tight end side, instead of having a second tight end as they have on many formations, they have a wide receiver. Meanwhile, they've taken their second tight end and put him to the opposite side as the motion man in the slot, and that switch is going to be incredibly important for the success of this play. As we run it forward just a bit more, we're going to see the quarterback fake a handoff to the running back, and then we're going to see the tight end in motion stop his movement, turning back around to the left side of the formation. The quarterback is then going to pull the ball away from the running back, before handing it off to that wide receiver coming on a reverse. The tight end in motion is then going to seal off the edge defender to this side, letting that wide receiver get around the edge for a big gain. To close out this video, here's one more big play out of a similar kind of formation. This is a little bit of a one-off, but it's still a two tight end set, with both of those guys set to the offense's left here, while two receiving threats line up to the opposite side of the formation. Finally, in addition to those receiving threats, Florida State's taking a running back and splitting him wide, outside of the tight ends, putting the quarterback in an empty backfield. Now, I mentioned that this is kind of a one-off formation, and something that's tricky about it is that the guy in the slot at the top of the screen is actually a running back, and so before the snap, they're going to motion him into the backfield, creating a shotgun set and putting him in position for a potential run to the left. Okay, so let's say that this is a run to the left. We've seen before that one of the ways that Alabama handled the quarterback run element on some of the plays that we've seen was with cover 3 cloud, where the cornerback jumped down inside, ready to attack the quarterback if he keeps it on the edge, while the safety rolls over the top to defend the deep sideline behind him. On this play, we'll see that basic idea. So if we watch the cornerback to this side after the snap, we see him jump down inside to attack the edge in the run game, while passing off his receiver to the deep safety that's playing behind him. That wide receiver then is just going to run down the seam, occupying that safety and running him off, while the running back releases out wide to run a wheel route outside of him down the sideline. Meanwhile, everybody in the front is responding to a run fake to the second running back, who's lined up out wide to the left side of the formation. After the snap, that guy comes across as if to get a handoff from the quarterback. This means that nobody in the front or secondary is going to see the other running back who had motioned into the backfield, releasing out wide to run his wheel route. He's largely uncovered and rips off a huge gain before any defenders can get close to him, and Florida State would punch in a touchdown on the very next play for the score that would prove to be the game winner. Alright, that's it for this video. If you want to see more film study of specific issues from the games that I break down, or to look back at historical film study from football's past, check out patreon.com/tcpfootball, and otherwise I'll see you back here next time.